Hi everyone, I want to continue where I left off in my last video, and what I was doing in my last video is I was trying to explain why I believe the Lord is going to return in 2018, and I was going over some tables that seem to confirm that. Okay, and the next table that I was going to show is the table that I did on the word Nibiru, and I have it in this video right here. I pulled it up from the video file. The latest video that I did on that was called 2017-2018 Nibiru, the party is over, and I believe that was a music video, but I just pulled it up so I can show you the table. The table that I did on the word Nibiru was the very first video I ever did, so if you can go all the way back that far in my channel, you can see that's the very first video. And one of the reasons I decided to start making videos is because of all the amazing tables that I was seeing, plus a lot of other things that I had been wanting to explain. But I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of this video so you can see how the word Nibiru comes up. You can see that there's two matches for the word Nibiru. It comes up in Joshua 27, which looks like 2017, and 28, which looks like 2018. And of course, Joshua is the name Jesus. It's named Yeshua in the Hebrew, which is the actual name of Jesus in Hebrew. Okay, and this actually ties into my last video, because the very last thing I said in my last video is how when the trumpets are blown in the book of Joshua chapter 6, where it describes the fall of Jericho, which is when the walls came down. I was explaining how that is a parallel to the trumpets being blown on the Feast of Tabernacles and Hanukkah, which is Second Tabernacles, and the water libation ceremony. So that was the very last thing that I said in my last video. And I've actually been doing some research on that since my last video, and I want to try to explain that research as well. Okay, so I'll get into that a little bit later, but for now I'll go back to this table over here on the words Nibiru, and I just want to show you how the word Nibiru comes up in the table. It's really hard to do this without being able to pull it up. I just have to go through the video, but I'll pause it when it gets back to the table. Okay, you can see the word Nibiru came up with two matches, and it was coming up straight up and down. But what happened in this particular video is, because I had enlarged the text so it'd be easier to see it, it doesn't show straight up and down when I put more terms in, but in the smaller table it does. And I may try to pull the original video up so you can see how it looked originally. Okay, when I first did this table, I had no idea that God was showing the years with the scripture numbers as I believe now, and so I was trying to come up with a year. It hadn't occurred to me that the year was in the matrix, but I was trying to come up with the year, so I had put in Nibiru year, and so it pulled up more of the matrix when I did that. And I was just showing here how there's a symmetrical design. And again, I'll show you the original table because it's a lot easier to see this with the original table, because it makes the letter I, because the word Nibiru comes up straight up and down in the original table. But at the top of the word Nibiru, you have the avenger of blood. Of course, the Jewish boy Natan said that when the Messiah comes, he's going to avenge all the blood that was spilled in Israel. And so again, this in the original table looks like the letter I with the avenger of blood at the top, and then Nibiru straight up and down, and then the avenger of blood at the bottom. And then I go on to show how it also says for judgment over here. And so that's how the word Nibiru comes up. And again, it comes up when you put in just the word Nibiru, it comes up in Joshua 27 and 28, which looks like 2017 and 2018, but when you put in the word year, it pulls up more of the matrix, and as you saw, it comes up from Joshua 24 through 28. And then I go on to show some of these scriptures that I talked about in my last video, such as John 8 verse 7, which makes 78 backwards. This is the Hebrew year 5778. Technically, I believe we're still in that year, and possibly even still in the year 5777 if the years begin with Nisan 1, as it says in Leviticus. Then 577 would be extended through to Nisan 1, because I believe the years are a year off, just like they are with the Gregorian calendar, because he started with year 1. And so I believe the true year right now is 5778 if it began with Tishri, but if it begins on Nisan 1, it's still 5777. And so I showed the scriptures where it says, if any of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. And so Jesus is the only one who is without sin, and so he's the one who's going to cast the first stone. Okay, and then I go on to show that it's in Revelation 8:10 through 11. So you have 8:10, which makes 18, or 8:11, the 118 code. And this is when the mountain is cast into the sea. It says, and the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of the waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died because of the waters, because they were made bitter. Okay, I went ahead and pulled up the original video because I wanted you to see how the word Nibiru comes up straight up and down in the original table. And you can see right here where it says the Avenger of Blood at the bottom, and the Avenger of Blood over here at the top. It makes the word heaven. I had forgotten that when you run those words together, it makes heaven. So you have heaven at the bottom, and then heaven at the top. And so you have the Avenger of Blood at the top, and the Avenger of Blood at the bottom. So it's almost like it's bookcasing it, or almost like a scroll with the handles of the scroll, and then the scroll in the middle with the word Nibiru. And so I just wanted you to see how it came up originally. So I had to pull up the original video. I had a cold when I did that. That was my very first video, and that's why I sound the way I do in that video. But I just wanted you to see how it comes up. And there's a lot of other information in the video as well as the music video. And so I'll put those links in the description box if anyone wants to see any more information about it. Okay, the other word that I wanted to show that I did a table on that actually ties in with what I want to explain next about the walls of Jericho and what all is being represented and how that ties in with Nibiru. I want to talk a little bit more about that, but probably in the next video. But it also ties in with the word mitosis, because what I want to try to explain is how this all has to do with DNA. And so this is another word that I had put in that seems to confirm the year that this is going to take place, because when the Lord returns, everything is going to be rent in twain, just like the temple was. The veil of the temple was rent in twain when Jesus died on the cross. And so when he returns, everything is going to be rent in twain. The heavens are going to depart like a scroll. If you look at the word in the Greek for that, it means to be rent, just like the veil was rent. And the entire earth is going to be split, not just the Mount of Olives. I've talked about that as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the entire earth is a representation of DNA as well as the Mount of Olives. And so everything is going to be rent in twain when the Lord returns. And so this is all a type and shadow of the DNA. The earth is actually, or DNA is a microcosm of the entire earth. That's something that I wanted to talk a little bit more about. And so the earth is a representation of DNA as well as the Bible and everything else in the Bible. But what I wanted to point out is that when you put in just the word mitosis, I'll just back it up again so you can see the word mitosis. Okay, so you can see when you put in just the word mitosis and you pull up the table, what comes up in the matrix is Ezekiel 20:17, which looks like the year 2017, and Ezekiel 20:18, which looks like the year 2018. But when you put in more words in the table, what I discovered is that there's a symmetrical pattern, and I'll show you that in a minute. But as you can see, I added some more terms up here. I put mitosis, seed, egg, because it's all about DNA, Adam, Eve, Lord, and then I put in the word Adam, and I was explaining in this part of the table that I believe everything is going to be split in half, or like I said, everything's going to be rent in twain from the earth, the entire earth and the heavens, to the smallest particle, which is the word atom. It represents the smallest particle. And in 1 Thessalonians, I'll go ahead and pull it up and I'll show it to you. Okay, it's actually the other rapture verse, which is 1 Corinthians 15:52, but this also adds up to 7:7. And then the other most famous rapture verse where it talks about the last trump. I believe both of these scriptures have the word trump in them, but this one comes up in verse 17. Okay, they are the two scriptures that have the word trump, the last trump in them. But if you look at the word moment in 1 Corinthians 15:52, where it says, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. The word here is Adam, and it's interesting that it's 8:23. Of course, there's 23 chromosomes, two sets of 23 chromosomes in DNA, but the atom is the smallest particle, and so the concept is that it cannot be divided because it's so small, and so it's talking about an atom of time. But I believe it's literally talking about an atom as well, that it's talking about the smallest particle. I believe that's why CERN is trying to collide particles as well. They're trying to imitate God, but only God can divide the smallest particle. And what I realized is that when you pull up the matrix, it actually comes up with a symmetrical pattern, starting with verse 2013 and going through to 2022, which actually would match up. I was going to pull up the blood moon pattern, but I realized that the blood moons in 2022 don't show up, so I'll just show the book of Revelation instead. But with the blood moon pattern, you had the 3 solar eclipses starting from 2009 going through to 2011, and then you had the blood moons in 2014, 2015, and then 3 days later, this would line up with the Passover week. It was on the 18th when Jesus resurrected on Nisan 18, and then I believe this is a parallel of the last 7 years ending with 2022. Okay, so that's the same pattern that you had here, and right in the middle of that pattern were the years 2017 and 2018. And the way I noticed that this pattern was symmetrical is because this verse right here reads exactly as it did in the beginning. It says, but the children rebelled against me. They walked not in my statutes, neither kept mine ordinances to do them, which if a man do, he shall live in them. They profaned my Sabbaths. Then I said, I would pour out my wrath upon them to accomplish my anger against them in the wilderness. Okay, and this reads almost exactly as it did in verse 2013, which is how I noticed that there was a symmetrical pattern, and I noticed that as I was reading the matrix while I was doing the video. Okay, but I'm almost out of time, so I'll try to explain more and how I came up with the word to begin with in the next video.